everyone, welcome to Quirky Cooking Chats. I'm Jo Whitten and it's so nice to have you listening in this week. We have another wonderful interview from one of our past members of the Gut Health Formula this week, and I really love this interview and I can't wait to get into it. But first, I just want to give you a couple of updates. As a lot of you know, I've been away overseas for about a month and I'm still catching up and trying to figure out what's going on for the rest of the year. New half of the year, so much already planned, exciting things happening. So for those of you who are interested in a gut health retreat where the focus is on cooking for gut health with me, I have a cooking retreat happening in Far North Queensland in September. So the dates are 11th to 15th of September. You can find the information on my website. Just click on the events and retreats tab and you'll see it there. And I really hope that some of you can come along. We've got all sorts of exciting things planned. Food tours with local producers, lots of cooking classes. We've got a naturopath that's going to teach us about herbs and how to use them for medicinal purposes and in your cooking. We've got some wonderful places to go and see and waterfalls and crater lakes to swim in. So if you'd like to come and join me on my home turf on the Atherton Tablelands in Far North Queensland, check that out. The link's also below. Another exciting thing that's happening is that our program is starting again. So we've got usually 3 rounds of the program each year. There's a whole team of practitioners in the program ready to help you with any of your gut health questions and working through getting started on healing or taking that next step if you're already working on your gut health. So we have practitioners and cooking experts in the program ready to answer you live for 8 weeks. We do live cooking classes and live question and answer videos and chats about difficult health issues and all sorts of things. So you can either just go in and work at your own pace and watch the live videos later when you've got time, or you can join in the live videos and ask questions live. So that starts this week. Please have a look at the link below if you need any kind of help or support or encouragement. Adding healing foods into your everyday meals and just implementing basic gut health principles in your everyday life. And this has made a huge difference to thousands of people. So we've been running this program 3 or 4 times a year for the last 5 years, Elyse Comfort and I. And Elyse is an integrative nutritionist and a GAPS practitioner and a health scientist, and she's very experienced with difficult health issues and chronic health issues, gut health issues. And she's helped a lot of people. And I love teaching people the practical side of healing. So getting your schedule sorted out so you've got the headspace to cook meals for your family, and also things like meal planning and bulk buying and bulk cooking and getting meals in the freezer for the week ahead. Simple meals that you can make that take 5 or 10 minutes of prep, and then you can just get them on the stove or in the oven or in the slow cooker, and you've got a delicious meal for your family. So there's lots of things that we can help you with. If you feel like this is something you're interested in, please listen to this podcast and the 2 before, because these are people who've been through our program, and really some of them felt like they already knew it all. They had done all the diet things. They still weren't well. They were eating whole foods. They were trying to eat organic. They were doing all these things that are the right thing to do, but they still weren't well. And so they came into the program and we were able to dig deeper into root causes and help them to heal. And so it's really exciting to hear their stories, and it gives a lot of hope for people who have been struggling maybe for years with their health and just really not getting the answers they needed. Because that's where I was and that's where Elyse was. And when we learnt about the principles of healing the gut, they just clicked with us, and we just started working on that step by step and in our families. And we just really found it made a huge difference. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. There's a lot of really great info in this one. And the one before with Caitlin and the one before that with Steph, have a listen to those as well if you can. But welcome to Briony as she shares her story today. Thanks for listening.
Hi guys, it's Elyse Comerford here with Joe, and we have Briony here with us as well. So we have been sharing some stories. You may have heard the one that we did with Steph. We've been sharing some stories about people's experience in the gut health formula. So we feel it's so important to share stories of healing because they are so inspiring. So when you do hear someone else's story, that's often how we find out about things. So when it comes to gut health or the GAPS protocol, or even just eating whole foods, you probably came across this because someone told you about it. That is often the case. Someone telling you about their experience with it and how much it helped them. And I find that we do get so inspired when we hear about other people's experiences, and it gives us hope. So that is what we are hoping to bring to you today, is some hope. And we are going to have a chat through with Briony about her experience with the gut health formula, and you'll get a bit of a picture of what she was hoping to deal with, what kind of health issues, and how that experience all played out for her. So welcome, Briony.
Thank you for having me, Joe and Elyse.
So good to chat. It's so nice to see the faces from people we've been talking to for the last few weeks on the program. It's really lovely.
We get to know everyone's names very well, but then we don't, it's like we just picture faces in our mind. So it's nice to actually see those faces.
Yeah.
We just ask lots of questions.
Yes, yeah, which is great. And that it makes the program so much fun for Joe and I, because we do get to know everyone in there, and we do get to know a lot about your journey because we are in there chatting away, answering questions every day. So it feels like a real community in there, and we know that's where people get a lot of value out of it. So we're so happy to be in there answering all the questions.
Yes. So Briony, to start off, we'd love to know what led you to join the program, and what you were hoping to get out of it.
Well, I was having a lot of problems with my gut health, and I felt really confused and overwhelmed with how to even approach it. And I felt so lucky hearing some other people's stories that I came across the gut health formula program, and in a roundabout way that I found out about yourself, Joe. And it was your recipe for the pork belly with beans. That's how I found out about this program, because last year doing another course, and I was like, people were talking about pork belly, and I'm like, well, how do I braise pork belly? And then there was your recipe that got mentioned about how to cook the pork belly. And then I'm like, if it's about like supposed to be good for your gut, then I think that's what I'm having problems with, and I'm going to check out this woman's website a bit more. So it's funny, and I'm like, I don't know where to start sometimes, because I realized I had a really inflamed gut. Like I had pretty explosive, horrible, energy draining diarrhea for like 2 months. I lost count after 2 months. And because I know in my head how that happened, I thought that it should just go away. Yeah, the more I got through the program, and that's what I loved about the gut health formula, because it's 8 weeks, and I was also reading the GAPS book at the same time. What I realized looking back in my life, this has been an issue. This has always been an issue. It just took an episode of being really unwell, being run down, and also, pushing myself further, whilst being unwell, and going on a really intense hiking trip and drinking some water that really should have been treated, from a beautiful river. But, turns out, it just totally imbalanced the healthy and opportunistic bacteria in my gut. So that's something else I've learned, really, was how to calm my mind down around what is going on in my body, because freaking out about it was making things worse. I couldn't make a decision about anything. So it felt like a bit of a time gap until the course started. I was so touched that Joe messaged me. I think it was like Christmas Eve. And there I am, like stressing out about my health. And I get this beautiful, warm gentle message from Jo, doing what she can for now, and then knowing, of course, that this is going to be a longer journey. So it took my ego a bit of time to realize that this wasn't going to be a quick fix. My acupuncturist had me on a congee fast, and then when that didn't work in a couple of days, I was like, oh my God, I'm just so hungry and this isn't working. And I felt like I had no ideas left at all of what to approach. I had really horrible eczema as a child, like to the point that I used to fantasize about being able to kind of have a zip in the middle of my body and like unzip and then just step out of my skin, like a snake would shed their skin. And my mum used to take me to all sorts of doctors and all sorts of things about that. And that was, in the 80s, the early 80s. Things have changed now. And what I realize, if anything, so many more people have this issue now. And so it's like I'm joining all these dots. I have a background in permaculture. So, talking about how things like Roundup and glyphosate have been sprayed across all crops. So I felt ashamed in the fact that I already ate really well. And that seems to be a common theme with maybe a lot of your diseases, that I already had a very healthy whole foods diet. And in fact, I work as a therapist who helps people to connect their body and their thoughts and emotions and spirit for healing. So I went hell for leather with all the spiritual and emotional reasons as to why there was all that huge gut inflammation there. And I felt very virtuous, yet I still had to live in this body and the symptoms were still there. And I'm like, I don't know what's left. And my energy levels just kept going down and down more and more. So I was more depleted. I'd go and get the acupuncture and I was there. He was so generous. I'd be there for like 2 hours and then I'd go and have another nap in the park for another hour or so.
Wow.
So I was pretty desperate by the time the course started, and just looking for something that was going to be sustainable. Once I realized it wasn't going to be an overnight solution, I didn't want to face it alone. So that was really significant, that I got a message from Jo at a time of year when everyone else is sort of preoccupied with other things, like with their families and whatnot. I don't have a huge support system around me, living alone, and family much further away, because a lot of it's a complex issue. And that's why I loved like the Wheel of Life, and I loved the approach of the course, because very much this physical aspect was something that needed addressing. That was kind of like the last little piece to unlock for the rest to unfold and just keep shifting and chinking into place for me, because I did have a lot of embodied physical, mental, emotional trauma that was a large contributor to the basis of that inflammation and embodied gut health issues. So I'd looked at so many aspects, but what I found is that doing the gut health formula has like smoothed that pathway, and I've had a sudden, like, all these revelations, and my energy levels have gone up, my ability to create, my ability to be present. I actually had a business coach say to me, look, just get your gut sorted and then like contact me later. Ironically, I'd got in touch with her, and she was a business coach who also specializes in working with naturopaths. So there was a thread that there was nudging in the direction. There's no ironies there.
Oh, amazing.
So it's felt both miraculous, yet it's been one step at a time, one day at a time, one cup of meat stock at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Healing one cup of meat stock at a time.
You should have that blurb on your website, Elyse.
Yeah, I know. I should make bumper stickers.
I know, right?
Yeah. So it sounds like there was lots of health challenges there, and that in trying to do it on your own, there's lots of confusion, and that's where we find a lot of people are at, like you said, with, well, I'm eating healthy, like why is this still happening? And it can just be pieces of the puzzle that are missing, because we see that all the time. Most of the people that come to my clinic, they're generally not eating a standard diet. Some are, and that is absolutely fine. We work from there as well, but just in the nature of how people come across us, they generally have been a fair way down that path, and just still, it's just that next steps, as you've been finding. So what have you found most helpful about the program?
Oh, kind of all of it. The structure was perfect.
Oh,
and I remember you guys saying at the start, it's like, you might be thinking now, why are we talking about all this lifestyle stuff and getting you to sort out your schedule? Why can't we just dive straight in there with the recipes? And the part of me that wants to push ahead, which ironically was the one that's been the driver behind a lot of the inflammation.
Yes.
Was like, but yeah, can't we just get to the crux of it, get to the guts of it, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
So yeah, really connecting and anchoring in my why all the time, and being real with where I was at. I found it was a very real course. In the past, I guess there can be a superficial way of doing things, yet I was 100% committed. And yeah, so the layering of it, doing the one step at a time, I found it really easy to implement. Like, I've got my ferments going. I make a big batch of stock every week. It's just a habit. First thing in the morning, I heat it up and put it in my thermos, and I take it to the beach with me. Really, the real reality check was, Elyse, when you were there, like saying, you don't have to do an F45 high intensity training and thrash yourself. This one day where I went to the beach and I was like, you know what, I'm actually exhausted. The weekend is usually the time that I give myself off from doing more cardio or a lot of physical activity, yet that weekend somehow I'd ended up doing a lot. So I actually woke up Monday morning going, I don't feel like going for a run. That's my usual routine. In the past, they were habits and structural patterns that are at a more controlling part of me created for safety. Yet what I found through this program was I was able to, whilst my gut was naturally healing, it was easier to make wiser, more nurturing and nourishing choices for myself. I was a bit skeptical in reading the GAPS book when talking about eating disorders, that it actually helps with that, because it is such a, there's a whole picture to look at. And that's my story back from when I was 14. I'm now, I just turned 44 during the program.
Happy birthday.
That's what, led me into therapy. And I'm wondering, honestly, like, when I look back at the treatments that I was given at that time by the mainstream society, because they would shove these carb-loaded foods into you, and someone who already has an innate sensitivity to how they're feeling in their body, it's a repulsion. So I legitimately am seeing and feeling those connections with, step by step, how much easier it is for us to be real and to make wise choices in multiple areas of life. When in the past, it's like you're kind of just treated as if you're this outlier, there's something wrong. So those have been some of the major shifts for me. I kind of lightly jogged up to the cliff tops at Bronte Beach here in Sydney and did some cheese squats and she pushes and pulls.
Right.
And because I realized how I'd been throwing away, anticipating and draining my energy all this time. I'm like, hang on a second, no one else is is like got a vacuum cleaner here and sucking my energy out. I'm choosing it. I'm the one that either exhausts myself or, to the point that I can then justify to rest. And it's like, I'm just going to see what happens. And little bit by little bit, I found that I preferred the feeling that gave me. So I would do it more and more.
I feel like you've really taken on what we have taught.
She's really got it.
I
know, that's so exciting to hear. Like, and
I teach it to my clients too, and I do little videos on my Facebook of my fermented garlic and honey, and I have messaging me saying, "What is that?" Because I realized because it's such a known habit for me. It's like, what do you mean you're asking, what does this fire cider do? Or what does that do? And it's for your immune system. And then they're like, but what's that for? And I'm like, it's for your health. Yeah. So some things that I take for granted.
Yeah.
Others really genuinely don't know. And they're so grateful. And it's the inspiration of the group that helps me to then flow that on and share that to others. And that's why I was so grateful for the group, because I went into this massive panic. I'm like, oh my God, even if I just book one naturopath appointment and all these supplements they're going to prescribe me, because I do know other naturopaths out there. And I felt a little bit like I had to pretend about what I was doing, because they were going to be like, why aren't you asking me for help? And I'm like, no, I'm doing this program and this is what I'm doing because I want to change my life. I don't want to just, rip something out and replace it with something else. I remember my first year at uni, I went to a naturopath and I didn't really know what was going on. They gave me these supplements for my adrenals. And I remember at the time I'd sort of get into this almost like panic kind of mode and again, it was that doing. And that was a good 10 or more than 10 years ago. And to think when I look back on these symptoms, and I know that we always find things in the right timing, so to speak. Yet when I look back, I realize just so many gaps in knowledge and education that you guys cover. In this
There is so many things there that I want to comment on, because I feel like nearly every principle we're trying to teach, you've touched on there, which is really like that almost
very
makes
exciting. Me I nearly felt like I was going to get
really emotional, because it's like, oh my gosh, what we're really aiming to put across, it's working, because everything you described there, the slowing down, like when you said about running up to the headland at Bronte and doing your cheese squats, which we have Kathy Carr, our amazing personal trainer, come in and do a video for you guys teaching you cheese squats and about, she teaches a lot of the philosophy of it, of working in rather than always working out, and about your energy and preserving that. So I feel like you touched on that really well, and that it is about a bigger life picture. And that's what we really try and show people. It's not just about, oh, you want to heal your gut, okay, these are the things that you need to take or eat. It's just not that simple, because there's this whole, it's within a life. And it's like, if you're really stressed and you're not focusing on nourishing yourself, it's not going to happen. So it's like, that's what we've been trying to do. And you mentioned the Wheel of Life, which is an activity we get everyone to do in the first week, which does give you a snapshot of where is my life at right now. You get to take stock, you get to think of what your goals are and what is it I'm actually wanting here. So then you can assess along the way, am I actually taking steps towards that goal, or am I just getting sidetracked with this juice cleanse that someone's doing on Instagram and I feel like I need to do it, but it actually doesn't serve anything in my Wheel of Life or my life goals right now. So it's like, our goal is to teach people how to be healthy in the sense of your whole life. We also then do give you the pieces to put together, but it's like learning that, I feel like, is the most important thing we teach, is that whole picture of how to be healthy. And I just feel like you described that in every essence of what we're trying
perfectly.
I found when I redid that, I think I don't know, was this the second last week or which week it was, but we revisited pretty much that.
Yeah.
The parameters that we started with, and it's like, oh God, I have to go through this again.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, actually, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's actually good to revise
It is.
the why and to keep us, to keep monitoring and
Bringing
adjust.
yourself back to that.
It's about being responsive rather than
Yeah. And it can be really uplifting when you're like, oh, that's where it was and this is where it is. Great. And those markers being not blood tests or, something like that. It's actually like me looking at the quality of my whole life is my marker for my health.
Yeah. It was refreshing to notice that every area in that wheel had improved for me, had been upgraded, not by me consciously needing to focus on any of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yet just my lens through which I was experiencing the world and, filtering through and being who I was being had completely changed.
Amazing.
Yeah, my acupuncturist was like, I don't know what you're doing, Briony, but whatever it is, keep doing it. And if anything, I was asking him less questions. I was saying less.
So what challenges, we've kind of probably covered this, but can you think of some challenges that you were facing when you were really trying to do this all on your own, trying to heal without the help of a support group?
Not even knowing where to start or what was important. As I had no idea. In that process, in the feeling alone, I was kind of looking on Google, and I remember that was the first thing I proudly mentioned when the course started was I said, Elyse, I binge watched every single.
I remember you saying that, and I also remember you saying, I'm probably going to try and go too fast with all of this. I remember that, yeah.
So it was a beautiful warm entrance to it all, because I remember I had like a little intro call with Nadine, one of your team members, and she's like, oh, I'm suspecting that you might have some parasites might be kind of like going over, and I just was like, oh my god.
Did you go down the parasite rabbit hole? That's a scary.
No, Nadine wouldn't send her that way.
No, I mean with her Googling.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a humbling experience is all I can say. And I hope that I didn't, or multiple people in the course didn't drive you guys crazy, because it's like sometimes asking the same question multiple times, because especially when you've got like that brain fog from a gut that's not really working. It's like, it takes a while to sink in.
Oh, it does.
So
we've been there ourselves, don't worry. And you don't take in an answer until you're ready for it.
Yeah, you can't hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's we're always happy to explain things over and over. Like we do it every time, and it's really interesting how some of the same conversations always come up each time, which is quite cool. But yeah, we never have any issues with doing that. Yeah,
I just thought of that irony. I was like, I wonder if the gaps is like symbolic of the gaps in our gut lining.
Yeah,
yeah, I always think that too.
It's like the gaps in your brain as well. Yeah. It's like a sieve. Yeah. My focus, my ability to focus on anything was just shot, and it's as with anything, it's like because the shift is so gradual, it's like you don't really notice. It's beautiful to get that feedback and then have some markers along the way, like the structure of the course that you had. So challenges were sometimes really understanding why, because I mean I love really nice sourdough bread. I used to make it myself. I had my own little pet sourdough culture in the cupboard when I lived on the farm, and potatoes. So there's some things like I haven't the intro gaps, or what you ladies have called the intense section.
The more intensive phase, yes.
Intensive was something that totally intimidated me from the start. So there's things that I don't know if I could have done without the group, because it's like yeah, it just feels almost unattainable
Yeah.
when you're already struggling enough. And also I was, yeah, freaking out about the idea of what it would potentially have costed to have all these individual consultations. And I just had this sense that I could have so easily gone down a rabbit hole, because it was suggested to me about getting testing done. And then like they're hundreds of dollars, these tests.
And then
And I even had a friend who is a naturopath who was sort of willing to help me with that. And then I even went and I waited in the doctor's surgery, the bulk billing one down the street, like a block away. I was there for almost 2 hours, waiting to see if the pathology section could do this particular test, which they wouldn't usually do. So I was trying to see if I could maybe get it bulk billed, because it just wasn't in my budget at that time to do that. Because I'm like, and then even the GP didn't know which test to do, because my friend sent me this huge list of all the options, and he's there, and it was almost like, there's a movie with like Cher in it, and I just remember that scene where she sort of closes her eyes and then sticks her finger on a map on the wall, and that's where they all moved home to. With her and Winona Ryder. I think there was a fish thing in there, but it felt like I could laugh about it now, yet I was so stressed out at the time because I felt helpless about my health and powerless. And there I had this GP who's supposed to be an authority and know something hopefully more than me, didn't know.
Yeah.
He wanted to send me to like some other expensive specialists, and like all this time of waiting. And I'm so glad that I trust whatever was left of my gut or intuition at the time, and was like, hang on, I have a feeling I'm just going to end up going down a rabbit hole here. So I'm like, okay, let's go home, just breathe, just chill out. Just chill out.
Yeah. And that's what the gut health formula is really about. It's about just winding it all back to the root cause. It is about that. And that's, you can get very, very overwhelmed because there are a million rabbit holes to go down, and they're generally symptom. So they're much up here, surface level, they're the symptoms. So, and I talk about this in week 7 when we do complex health issues. And that there's like, different things like histamine intolerance, mast cell activation disorder, pyrroles, SIBO, all these things, they are symptoms, but they often get, and even parasites, heavy metals, those things, they get treated like they are the root cause. And so lots of practitioners are going down all those rabbit holes when they are in fact symptoms, and we need to go deeper to the root cause. And it's like branches of a tree, that as you get further away from the root cause, there's more and more things going on. But when we get one back to the root cause, there's only a few things that actually need to be addressed for all this myriad of symptoms to stop. And so that's where we kind of bring that in, and it takes that stress, overwhelm, thousands of dollars worth of testing, thousands of dollars worth of supplements, because they are not the answer. Testing gets relied on far too much, where it's like poking a hole and then trying to look through it to see a whole picture, and it just doesn't really work. You've already got to have an idea of what's going on before you do the testing, and then the testing's only just giving you one little piece. It's not giving you the whole picture, and sends you down rabbit holes. So yeah, that is very common to be really confused doing all this testing. And usually when people have had health issues going on for a long time, they come to our clinic with all their testing, and I say to them, like, what with the testing you've done so far, what's changed, what's helped, what have you learned from that? And they're like, nothing. It's like, usually it's, I don't know. It's also confusing. One thing tells me one thing tells me something else. I'm confused and overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. So it's a huge relief when you can come back to that root cause. And you did touch on gaps intro then. So just for those listening, with where the gut health formula fits into that, with the gut health formula, our aim is to teach you what healthy looks like within a life. So that's really important, that foundations of health and how you blueprint for actually improving your health, which includes the lifestyle factors too, and how to think about your health and how to work that in day to day. And then what we're doing without the food and the nourishing and everything we talk about in the gut health formula, it is all things that are in line with GAPS, but it doesn't mean you have to do everything. So that's the big thing with the gut health formula, is taking that big weight off everyone's shoulder that they need to go and follow something perfectly. It's about, where are you at? What do you need to bring in? Where does this all sit for you? If it's like, actually, I'm really stressed and overwhelmed, I'm really lost with where I'm at with my health, that I feel like I can manage just doing these bits, so I'm just going to do those bits, and then I'm going to see where I go from there. That's how we've designed it. Some people will do all the bits and they're like, great, I did all the bits and I've changed all those things, and it's actually now I'm on full GAPS, and it's been an easy process and I've got there because I was ready for it. Other people will say, I'm still eating pretty similar, but I'm now including meat stocks. I'm now including, I'm buying sauerkraut and adding that to my meals. And you might be doing a couple of other things, and you're like, I'm noticing a difference from doing those things. I'm not too stressed and overwhelmed. Maybe then in 2 months' time, I'm ready to take the next step. So it is that kind of choose your own adventure is how we talk about it. So GAPS intro, if people may or may not be familiar with that, Joe and I both have blog posts on our websites about GAPS, what it is, breaking it all down so you can get a really good understanding. So if you're wondering, that would be a good place to go to read. Also on my YouTube channel, I've got a what is GAPS short video. Joe probably might as well.
That would be good to link to.
Yeah, so there is info there if you're wanting more information. The
biggest gift that you guys gave was helping us, or helping myself, I can only speak for myself, is to regain that trust in my body, my body's innate ability to heal, to kind of let go of the hype and panic and fear of needing some external outside authority to tell me what's wrong, to diagnose, to be like, this is your solution. So I felt like the trust levels were regained in my own ability to, and that's a lifelong learning.
It is
a lifelong learning. Because that's when the fear and the panic comes in, is when I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then I'm like waiting for this doctor to tell me. And then when I realize they don't know, it's like a reenactment of childhood wounding when you're a little kid and your parents are supposed to be looking after you. And they're like, we don't know either. And you're like, oh my God, well, no one knows.
Yeah.
So it was a beautiful balance of both trusting the authority and knowledge that you two have, yet also, as you say, it has the flexibility of being a one size fits all, yet it is your own adventure. So I've still been eating potatoes, and it's on my list to make the grain-free breads and things. Yet I've minimized things, and I've kind of just taken it easy on myself, because that whole getting stressed about trying to be healthy thing is super real.
Very much so.
Sounds like your biggest change then is mindset based, do you think, or your energy levels and your mindset?
Yeah, it's funny, like I say, that it was like this was the next little lock, and it was like I was ready. I think the next level of completely falling apart had to happen, because it's by far from the first time that I've had things have sort of just disintegrated and your foundations have fallen apart. I'm like, oh God, here we are again. I was just trying to relaunch this thing, and now I'm pulling back. Yet I am so grateful for it all. So grateful.
Amazing. And so you mentioned the group a couple of times. So within the gut health formula, we do have the Telegram chat group, which is awesome because you can have it on your phone or your computer and just be chatting away in there. So we'll have people at the supermarket and they're like, oh, should I buy this? Or they're just in the middle of cooking something and they're like, what should I do with this chicken? So yeah, the chat group is there for those small things and also the bigger questions and understanding everything throughout. So how did you find that, having that Telegram community there and also having the practitioner questions available where you could go in and write the more detailed questions for the clinic practitioners as well? So how did you feel that level of support and having that daily chat and that community there?
I felt like all bases were covered.
Amazing.
There was an opportunity for the written, like you say, the practitioner support, which I may have written one or two, yet I didn't feel that some of the health issues that I've been facing were necessarily warranting that. Yet I was finding myself checking the Telegram group all the time.
Yeah.
It's a source of connection at the end of the day, and the feeling of connection and having a safety net. Like I say, when you feel like you've got all bases covered, then you can actually take in the messages and the learning that's there. So yeah, I felt really held in all ways. Like on a personal note, like I knew that there was always somewhere I could get that support, or post a picture of my beak of ass. Because I just love sharing these things, and it's exciting, and not everyone can appreciate how much gel you've got on your stuff.
I know, and then you have a whole group of people getting excited with you.
Oh my God, like, yeah.
On the same wavelength.
So, and I love that you've got the alumni group, because there can be that fear that comes in of, like, you notice everyone who was messaging going, how much longer are we going to have access to this, and are you going to shut the group because there's so many
drift.
And you don't know what you don't know. And like I mean, yourself, Joe and Elyse, you are always very attentive in the group, yet I would try to answer something if I felt like I could. So it feels good to contribute, but also to see what other people are asking, because like all these heads and all these bodies and all their situations, it's heartwarming to hear what other people may be going through, what other people are creating. It's inspiring. So it's just, again, like the theme is both being able to look after oneself, but being able to keep an eye on the bigger picture of it all. It's like, well, hang on, I'm not the only one here that may have some challenges. Like all these other people out there, and their daughters. And so I don't have children, but I can sort of see what approaches moving forward. So when I do have children, it's like, oh, this is how we can get them easier to get them to sleep at night, because there's so many contributing factors that I couldn't possibly think of in my own little bubble. But when all the bubbles are joined together, it's a miracle.
Yeah, amazing. It is.
What do you think your biggest takeaways were then, your aha moments?
Oh, my biggest aha moment was how I was the guiltiest one of creating my own inflammation. I'm like, I'm religiously running and keeping fit, and like I joke to people that there would have to be an apocalyptic storm for me to not be there at the beach. I'm like, I'm doing a good thing. I'm outdoors, I'm keeping fit, but it's like, but be real. How do I feel? Is this revitalizing me? Where is the line? I can't teach and profess to people about being connected to their body if I'm somehow kidding myself in the refinement of really honoring myself. That was really the key point, was feeling supported enough to make more choices around how I was actually the guilty one there.
And it's a society pushes us that way. So what I say to people is, if we're going with the flow of life, we'll be too busy and too stressed.
Yeah.
So that's where the flow takes us. We actually need to pull out of that and pull out of that stream and create our own flow, which takes work. It takes effort. So it's like you're pushing against it to try and create that for yourself. So yeah, it's rather than always just being self-driven, you're being pushed into it from all angles as well.
It takes consistent self-reflection, like inner reflection and outward reflection. Even just going to pick up a parcel at the parcel collection and post office before at Westfield here, just the way people were hustling and bustling to get onto the escalator, I was like, okay, just like that's theirs and this is what I'm here, and it's okay. Like there's no rush.
Yeah.
My call's at 2.
Yeah.
And I have meat stock in my
Great. I've got food, I've got snacks, I'm fine.
So long as I have some kind of a fat bomby type blood sugar regulating
you're
on hand, then I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I've got an excuse to make pate all the time now. I love it.
Who needs an excuse? Just make pate all the time. So how do you feel that the gut health formula has changed your approach now to your health, and both now and how it will be impactful over the long term, like both your physical health and how you approach your health?
Just so much softer. That's the feedback I've been given as well. Like my energy field, my face, just my approach is softer. It's just easier. It's not a strain. It's not an I have to do this in order to be healthy. I don't have to, or I should, in order to meet certain markers and criteria. The rigidity and the stiffness and controls that I had in the past, which I hadn't been ready to let go of yet. And I'm, again, just so blessed and grateful that there's something that came in that it was literally softening. And it's like, how easy is it to be and to continue and sustain something that's soft and enjoyable, and responsive and totally doable, not in the old doing way, but it's a way of being that just makes it effortless. So I just enjoy their health practices. It's a part of life. It's not the grit and determination and the willpower that used to have to be relied on. There's things now that I'm just like, I don't question myself about trying to force myself to do, because there's no why behind that. My why for the wise, nourishing, nurturing choices is really anchored, and all that old stuff it's like that anchor just got dissolved. I didn't have to smash it apart. I didn't have to go, get away from me, I'm not going to live that way anymore. It softened and joined.
Yeah, amazing. Oh my gosh. This is just, it's so good, Briony, because I feel like you're really getting it. Like you have really got it, what we're trying to get across, and that it is softening is a beautiful word for it, because it is softening your approach. And just as you're saying that, I'm thinking about, like our masculine and feminine aspects of ourselves, and we can be very masculine, very like doing, thinking, planning, like it's all about the getting it done, and we've got to like be really active about it and really set our goals and achieve them. It's very masculine, and it's like softening into balancing out that feminine side of doing things and flowing and nourishing ourselves, and balancing out that aspect. So that's what I really heard in that, which is amazing. That's where this is life-changing. It's not just about gut health, and that's what like we know with this program, and many people get once they've done it. This isn't just about gut health.
And that's something that I think is so beautiful, is that you've gone into this beautiful softening change, but really it's happened quite quickly. Like it took me so many years to get to the stage that you're at now. I probably took 20 years to get there. I guess I was trying to figure it out on my own. And I was very intense and very do, and always very stressed and anxious and tense and sick and low energy. And it took, I think it really started to change when I started to work on gut health, but then it was also understanding that whole big picture of how it all affects your health and learning to move out of that crazy stream, like Elyse was saying. And it's just something that you just keep working on. And when you look back, you're like, wow, was I really like that? It's such a big change, and well done for just really taking it on and understanding all of that and working into it so beautifully.
So if someone is listening and they're thinking about doing the gut health formula, how would you either describe the experience, or which I feel like you have quite well already, but what would you say to them if they're kind of sitting on that fence of confusion, a bit where you were at, of like, I don't know where I'm at with my health or what next steps I should be taking, which I guess many people will be feeling that right now?
I guess something I find is you can never really tell someone what to do.
You can only share your experience.
I'd love to, because at that moment, like, I could feel this excitement bubble up in me when we were like, oh, if there was someone there that was on the fence, I'd be like, do it. You know, then they could be, depending on where they're at and how they're feeling, they might just think I'm a bit nuts.
Well, you do fit in well with us if you're a bit nuts.
Yeah.
So, it's sort of sharing my experience, which I hope I've done deeply and lightly and broadly enough already. It's kind of like, it's like, do you want to have an experience that sustainably changes all parts of you? Like, do you feel like you're ready to commit to really growing yourself, not just looking at your gut health, but also really feeding and learning how to nourish you and taking back that responsibility for your health, and, you know, give it a go. That's why we're here. We have these human bodies, and so many people don't realize how good we can feel because we're so used to feeling kind of mediocre. And I realized how much of my life I was used to feeling a bit like under that water level. I was used to the bloating. I was used to having stools that were pretty inconsistent. It took for them to get explosive for multiple weeks and months for me to be like, there's something wrong.
Yeah, maybe I should do something about this.
Yeah, it's like there's a level of denial and a level of acceptance of mediocrity that has become too normal. Yet on the other hand, we're kind of fed a lot of positive affirmations that we can have what we want. Yet we need to meet those halfway. We need to rebuild the foundations in us, which is our mind. Our mind and our body are inextricably linked. You notice it straight away if you have a sugary or fizzy drink. You feel the pop and then you feel the drop.
Love that.
So it's like, just, look at yourself and go, what do I want to keep choosing? Who do I want to choose to be? And when you choose this course, you've got a wealth of knowledge and you've got so much support that you can't not come out a changed person.
Oh, wow.
You can't not.
Oh, that's so good.
So regardless of whatever level and height of goal, know that you're going to need to go deep before you can go high. to get your foundations in place and strong, so that you really can be that version of you. Did that
amazing? I think that will have inspired a lot of people.
So definitely. Thank you so much for sharing, Briony. That's just beautiful. I keep having tears in my eyes.
I know. That's what I'm just like, oh my gosh, Joe, we're doing it. We're doing it. Like when Joe and I were first talking about this program, it was out of like, how can we create a program that people really need? Like, we want it to be what they need, not what we think they need. And so how do we make it in a way that is going to suit a lot of different people in a lot of different phases of life? Like, how can we make it mold to people? And so that's really been our goal. And yeah, hearing you speak, Briony, makes me feel like we're kicking that goal, and that's just incredible. Absolutely incredible.
I mean, I felt so included. I remembered feeling a little bit confused. I saw someone put a comment on one of the chats of something about and I knew where they were coming from, because they obviously didn't have a family they were cooking for, or a whole household. And they're like, why are you talking about children or kids? Like, they were coming from a lens of their way of life. Yet I never felt different. It's not like the course was just for householders and for mothers, even though there was a lot of that in there. I felt very included. So you totally ticked that goal, and that's really the you need a vision to hold and run a course such as this, and it really heralds to your life experience, the two of you, not just your knowledge of nutrition or anything like that. But I remember, I think one of the interviews I listened to that you had in the last week was someone who finally found you, Elyse, because they wanted to be led through gaps by someone who'd actually done it, rather than a different practitioner who didn't have that experience. And it's something that I think I can appreciate it, because I really know, and I can see the nuances and quality of care and the holistic vision of it all, in that you guys have made it bigger than just yourselves. Therefore, you've also kind of made it more doable, because it's not completely up to you. If you believe in a higher power, if you believe in the universe, which all of us is connected to, that we get our nourishment from, that vision is also there as well, and they're taking responsibility for our health too. Because if you guys were completely invested and I have to heal and make sure that everyone meets their markers and every single person in the course, you guys would burn out running a course on burnout, which ironically I launched a workshop last year and burnt myself out.
And it was on burnout.
Running events on burnout.
Amazing, isn't
that
it?
was when the imbalance started. So it was, again, that's why I say it was humbling. Until you get your foundations clear, I've been humbled so many times and learned so much in the process.
Yeah, us too, for sure.
Yeah, we'll go through that, definitely.
Well, thank you so much, Briony, for sharing your experience today. And like we've said at the beginning, the stories of healing are so inspirational, because it often comes in moments when people really need it, and they just hear someone's experience and it sparks something within them to give that motivation. So not that we can control that, but that, that's our intention with putting these stories out there, is that it can give people hope. So, and I think yours really will have today.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. It was really beautiful.
You're welcome.